you'll find that as you try to motivate people, getting them to have action and getting them to make noise and shout is actually part of getting them to do things. So I understand a lot of you are in sports, and I can see that from the looks of the shoulders and stuff. So don't you have team cheers and other things that you do just before a game and things like that? It's the same thing. Take that into your business world as well when you do things. Interesting that we started with a prayer, because I did a LinkedIn post this morning that talked about people having a vision, and then they have that dream, and then they work to accomplish that dream. But it was actually a meditation that I was looking at, a devotional, but you can apply it to business just as easily. Listening to entrepreneurs and everybody else, you start with a vision for what you want to do, and then you make a plan, a business plan, in order to make it happen, and then you execute on that plan. I don't know if any of you know the Jerry Maguire movie or not. It's kind of old probably for all of you, but why are you building a plan is where I'm coming from with this.
Are you ready, Jerry?
I'm ready.
Just want to make sure you're ready, brother. Here it is. Show me the money. Jerry, does that make you feel good just to say that? Say it with me one time, Jerry. Show me the money. That's it, brother, but you got to yell that shit. Show me the money. I need to feel you, Jerry. Show me the money. Jerry, you better yell. Show me the money.
Okay, I saw a few smiles, so good. That was the intent with what would happen there. The other thing, if you want to go to the other side, if you're young, you remember watching Sesame Street, anybody? Yes? No? Yeah, okay, a few head shakes. I always liked Cookie Monster. I walked out of a room last night and stole a cookie that my wife had brought to a party and stuff. It's all about the money, right? Not entirely. I'm also doing a course right now online for servant leadership, which deals with how do you care for people, how do you make B Corps and other things. But a lot of it comes down to you have to have money for a business to be able to survive. So you're going to be writing a business plan, I understand, and why? What is the purpose? Who's the audience for that business plan? Is it so that you can raise funds for this business? Or are you making a business plan for a company that's, like I'm working with one that's 40 years old and it has to rejuvenate itself and grow? What is the reason for the business plan? And that's going to have a difference as to what you do with it. Yesterday's news, a local company here called Sheer Idea just raised $64 million. So they have a total money that they've raised of $87 million to date. Okay, so what did they have to go through in order to raise those funds? And what they had to do was they had to make a pitch to an investor of some sort. They had to go to somebody and say, here's what I want to do. Have any of you ever gone to your parents and asked for money? Yeah, of course, we all have, right? And you groveled maybe to some extent. You gave them lots of reasons. They asked you, why do you want to do that? And it could be as simple as you wanted to buy a baseball mitt or a skateboard. You know, what are you going to do to be safe? And you had all these questions you had to answer to them in order to get the money. So you have to make a pitch. So in the handouts, if you didn't get one, go to the back of the room and grab it. This first one here I call a single sheet strategic summary. It's two-sided, and if you count it, there are approximately 10 questions that you have to answer with this. What are you going to do? Why is somebody going to want to buy this? Who are the customers demographically, psychologically, psychographically? How big is the market? How are you going to get your product to market? How are you going to approach people? What is your competitive advantage? Who are your competitors? How are you going to make money? And why are you the best person to be able to do this? Okay? And then on the back, you're going to have some financial forecast. Because I could take my money and I could put it into a checking account or a CD or a exchange traded fund or a stock mutual fund or something, and I could get 5 to 8% return on my money. If you're going to ask me for money, I want to know how I'm going to get better than 8% return on my money in order to warrant my giving you the money. Have you ever heard of an elevator pitch? Okay, this is an interesting thing. I was at a angel investor conference on Friday, and this individual pitched to us. He had a 10-minute clock in the pitch that he gave to us, and I've got additional documents showing everything. But literally, he actually had, and it was filmed for Salesforce, a 1-minute pitch, an elevator pitch.
Hi.
Hey, Brett.
Nice
Anthony
to meet
Diaz. Yeah, Anthony Diaz with Health Hero.
Brett
How you
Taylor,
doing?
nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Great
Welcome
to meet you.
to my elevator.
Yeah, thank you so much. So we are Omniversal Health, and essentially we're following up with patients using calls, text messages, and chat, and we're reducing readmissions for patients 20 to 50%. The reason why I started the company is because I lost my dad to heart disease. And I always felt that follow-up could have been better for my dad, but it turns out that follow-up is a $3 trillion problem. And the value that we provide in this market as it's moving to value-based is we're reducing readmits 20 to 50%. We're distributing through Salesforce Health Cloud right now, but most importantly, we're a 1% pledge company, triple bottom line, minority-owned business, and have a strong passion for underrepresented communities in the Latino marketplace. And yeah, it's just great to meet you, Brett.
Pretty short, intense. Now, I know you didn't have time to really look at those questions and understand them. And if you want, Heather, I can give you the link to the full feature of this. And take a look at how those 10 questions got answered in that short amount of time. Now, it so happens that he also has a 5-minute pitch that he had to do in an angel investor conference, also available on YouTube. So let's take a look at that now and watch how he tries with different slides to answer these questions. And it is a short slide presentation. You don't have a lot of time in 5 minutes to do something.
My name is Anthony Diaz. I'm the founder and CEO of Health Hero, and we are modern health engagement. And before I tell you about what we do and how we do it, I'm going to tell you about why we do it. So before I started Health Hero, the reason why I started Health Hero is because I lost my own dad to heart disease. The day that he went to the hospital with heart palpitations was the same day that he had his first heart attack. The same day he had his last. Like 100% of the people in this room, you all have lost someone to patient discharge or lack of follow-up for a patient. All of us have had friends and family that have lost a life due to patient follow-up. It turns out it's not just our problem, it just wasn't my family's problem, but it's a $3.5 trillion market. You heard Justin talk about it a little bit, how massive healthcare is. We're specifically focusing on the market of patient follow-up and population health. But the sub-metric of that is that $1.7 trillion is spent on only 5% of our patients. And it's based on social needs. Not having food, not having access to care, not having ways to pay for healthcare clients. It's a very massive problem. And what we do specifically is automated phone calls, text messages, and chat, and distributing through the largest systems that are already in hospitals. These are electronic health record systems and CRM systems like Salesforce, and I'll talk about that in just a second. Our value proposition is saving $2 million for every 10,000 patients that go through a system. So if everyone in this room is a CEO for a hospital, that is what you hold us accountable for, and we have proven those metrics with successful paying clients. If you're a nurse navigator, care coordinator, you're getting access to our system through Health Hero, through Salesforce, through Epic, or through Microsoft. Samantha, a nurse, she's a care coordinator. She is fatigued, she's tired, she is trying to reach out to as many patients every single day as much as she possibly can. She needs help, but outreach needs to be empathetic and scalable. So she leverages our systems to do disease state specific follow-up for patients like Mike that just got discharged. Mike does not text, he doesn't use an iPhone, but he uses a traditional phone, and that's how he's going to get interaction with Health Hero. If he did use text messages or automated phone calls, he would also get access to resources that are local to him related to his social needs. If he has any healthcare financing needs, if he has food needs, or shelter needs, we're an integrated market network, integrating with all the different software pieces that most hospitals have already invested in, and all the consumer apps that we all use in this room, like Uber rides and a Rise to Your Appointment, or a directory of resources that are available to you. Our intellectual moat and property, I've hinted at this already, but it's about smart workflows. And how you become sticky in this world, in this specific space, is you entangle yourselves in the workflows, and that's what we're doing in these hospital systems. Second piece is the omni-channel element. We integrate 5 different channels. So voice assistants, web, mobile, and mobile apps in addition to automated phone calls and text messages, and we are an integrated market network. One recent investor called us a needs platform. We're the #1 needs platform out there. We're the only one out there right now addressing the social needs of patients in this large market. That's a $60 billion TAM, but from a ground-up perspective, you have 40,000 healthcare organizations around the world that can pay us at least $330,000 annual recurring revenue per year. We sell to hospitals primarily for $10 per patient per month. In this value-based movement where you have a $3.5 trillion shift happening, we can charge at least $100 per patient per month. We have to earn that price in the market, but that's what we're focused on in the next 12 months. We are at 660K ARR right now, and we'll end off the year at $2 million ARR. Through this Kuwait program, we signed a $5 million deal with Visa, and we also signed a $220,000 a month deal with an insurance company just through this Kuwait program. And we don't just go direct. This market is starting to have a bundled approach. So the system integrators across the major EHR systems that we already integrate with us are starting to bundle. We're bundling with system integrators that already install Salesforce, they install Microsoft, they install Cerner. And across our system integrator partnerships that we signed during this program, they have 500 collective healthcare clients. Everything in our pipeline is coming inbound now. So we're getting a large demand. We'll do $2 million ARR this year and $15 million annual recurring revenue next year. We're centering on 83% profit margin, and between all of us on our team, we have over decades of experience in consumer engagement and health engagement. I built and coded claim systems for the largest managed mental health care company coming out of school, and then I ended my corporate career at Nielsen rolling out global analytic platforms for Fortune 50 clients such as Unilever, Microsoft, and P&G, and I did that across Latin America, France, China, Germany, and Spain. This is by far my most fun job. Our investors are great. We have Harvard Angels, Stanford Angels, Wharton Angels, Lightspeed, Upfront, Blue Cross Blue Shield. Our favorite is Kuwait.
After that, they provided a one-page summary of just about everything that you just heard. The investors, the Keiretsu Forum had about 5 people that went through and did due diligence over a month looking at every one of those suggestions and claims. And this is only a summary of a 70-page report for which they had to provide a more detailed business plan than what you saw there. And every one of the people who were on the due diligence team decided to invest in this particular company. Any of you have $25,000 to invest? You're putting it into yourselves right now with this education, okay? And that's great. So that's an actual example of why you would be using a business plan in order to raise funds. Now, if on the other hand you want to create a business plan for running a company, it's actually in some ways a little harder to me than what you see with trying to do a pitch. And so the book that I gave you looks at these 7 forces, and you'll have a hard time counting them because I cheated. People, product, and processes is one force in this, and I ignored the idea of you have to look at global trends. Like Health Hero, for instance, is going after people who are my age and older who need to be reminded to take their medications. I have my iPhone and I have my iWatch programmed. I have to take a medication exactly on 12-hour intervals. And so I have a reminder to make that happen. If I didn't do that, I have my wife who can also help me remember. So take a look at that book, and you have to look at every section. You have to look at your customers and how you get the product to market. You have to look at what you're doing for supplies, services, information, and parts, even if it's software. What could disrupt your business? I was reading yesterday that what we have right now in Venice is we have flooding. That's horrible. What are you going to do when that happens? I attended a meeting yesterday for transportation and the $2.3 billion we're going to spend on light rail going down the Southwest Corridor from downtown, down Barber and 99W to Bridgeport. Who's your competition? Who are the people that you've never heard of that are going to disrupt your business? And then a lot of it is technology enables all kinds of things to be different. So take a look at that, and I'll ask you for one favor. After you're done with the book, pass it on to a business owner that you learn about or meet somewhere here in the Portland area. If you're going to do a business plan, even if it is for the pitch, but more so for the case of running a business, you have to go through some sort of a process to figure out everything that you're going to do. And I see this in the military when they're deciding what to do for an action. First, you have to gather information. I saw as I walked in, there's a library, great place to get information. I'm helping a florist sell a business right now. So I went to Portland State University and I got a hold of two $3,000 reports on the industry for florists, brick and mortar, and florists online e-commerce. I could do it free because I've been paying taxes, and Portland State University has a subscription to that particular, it's called IBIS World, IBIS. Then you have to analyze what you got, assess what you're going to do with it, and decide what actions you're going to take. Then you can create a plan, and it's, anywhere from 90 days, what am I going to do, out to 3 years and beyond. That transportation committee meeting, that particular light rail line won't take effect and start running until at least 2027. So that's a 10-year plan that they put together. Then you have to execute and monitor what you are doing in order to make that happen. There's another handout that I gave you, and I give you this because you might want to consider this when you're putting your business plans together, not necessarily for this class, but in your life along the way. If I were to buy a business, which my son and I looked into doing a couple of years ago, if I look at a business, do I want to buy it? I want to get my money back when I buy that business. And so these are 9 things driven from the market as to whether or not I want to buy it. So from a market perspective, how many of you have vinyl records right now? Not one of you, right? Okay. Would you know that vinyl records actually are, quote unquote, having a comeback? It's a very, very niche market. I'm not sure I would want to pursue it, but it gets written up right now as a possibility. I would not invest in that. Would I invest in Apple TV or Disney or something like that? Maybe. Have you heard of WeWork for shared office space? Okay, they decided that they would try to make money and go out and get investors, and they thought they were worth about $50 billion. They reported a $1.2 billion quarterly loss yesterday. They're having to be saved by SoftBank in China. In China, SoftBank had invested in them early, and they're going to lose all of their money in that particular thing. So there's all kinds of things from the market side that you have to look at in doing a business. Then there are also internal to the company. You saw, for instance, the Go Hero. He had a slide showing all of his great people who were in the business, who are managing that business. That's in over here in Who is Your Senior Management. He talked about innovation within the business. He talked about who he was selling to and how he was going to be marketing it. He didn't have a lot of customers yet to talk about customer satisfaction. I'm talking with another client. They own a farm. They own a processing business. They own the land that the building's on. So they've got multiple things that they own that you have to determine. And so there can be lots of issues with how something is done legally. How are you dealing with people? It will be important to how you do things. The company I was talking with yesterday, okay, she has common situation. Her husband died and she got left with the business. Well, she thought that this one person was going to do well, but he's not working out so well now, a year and a half later. What do you do about that? In one part, she can't afford to let him go because he knows so much of the business, and yet he's really not doing what he needs to do. So that's the 9 drivers that you have within the business that can drive what you have to decide to do when you're putting together a business plan to run a company. How are you going to document it? Now, Heather or Dr. Lohmolder, whatever, you're expecting a Word document with about 30 pages, I'm going to guess, right?
It's going to be about 15 with appendix, 12 to 15.
Okay. Now, you have to do that if you're going to a bank to get money. You have to do that when you're raising funds from other people at a bank. But when you get into the real world, there are different ways that people actually document what their plan is and how they communicate it. The first is a spreadsheet, believe it or not, an Excel spreadsheet. Another is a PowerPoint presentation or a PDF of a PowerPoint presentation. I'll show you the one-page business plan and mention Cascade. So this is an actual $75 million a year company, and this is their strategic plan, their business plan for the year. There were actually about 15 tabs, one for each department, and they had their initiatives. I blocked them out for confidential purposes. Then they have actions, who's responsible, when's it due, what kind of progress are they making on it, what are the comments that they have, and how are they measuring their success with this. So this is probably the most common way that I see people do things, because Microsoft Excel or any other version that you might have, Google or Apple, it's a very simple way of documenting what needs to be done. And an advantage compared to what you have to do is it's who's responsible, and you're able to track what they're doing. The most common way that a business plan is put together and disseminated to employees is with a public presentation on PowerPoint of a public company. So Thor Industries makes recreational vehicles. I had a chance to work with them a year or so ago. And because they are a public company, they are obligated to have quarterly meetings for their investors. And invariably, it is presented as a PowerPoint presentation, and they will lay out for investors, shareholders and investors, what their plans are for 5 years or 10 years. You'd be surprised what you can find in these documents, and they are all free. All you have to do is go to any company's website that's public, look for in the header or in the footer where it says investor information or investors, and you'll be able to find these public pieces of information available to you. The other thing you can do is you can use software such as what is done with the one-page business plan, and do just a 90-day kind of thing. What are you going to do right now? What's the first step, second step, third step on the different actions, and track what you're doing. This is especially used by people who are in the sales area to try to get them motivated that I got to make my quarterly quota. I got to get this done by this amount of time, kind of thing. So that's a very common way too that things are documented. And then I gave you a handout of something that I use with a lot of clients, which is document your plan for action in one page. This can be a 1-year plan, a 90-day plan, or a multi-year plan. I keep one for my own company. It's typically a 3-year plan that I do, and then each quarter I just put a number here, quarter whatever for the year, and I update it with what I'm doing and what changes I need to make. This, you'll often see a pyramid where you start at the top with your vision, which I started talking about, and then at the bottom you have your actions. I prefer to go the other direction, because everything tells me that your foundation of whatever company you do is built on the values that you and your employees hold and actually act on. So I put that at the bottom so that it's the foundation of what you're doing. Then I look at the mission as outward looking. What are you doing for the customer? What are you doing for the environment? And so this happens to be a window company. What are they trying to do? And this gets to that earlier thing. What is the emotional trigger that people want? So we have windows in our house that are damaged from stains from the water and the salts in it and stuff like that. My wife is complaining because I can't bring her the beauty of nature into the house right now. Then, in specifics, what do you want to do with your business? And you'll find that you typically have two different visions. You have the one internal for your employees, which might have very specifics on profitability and some other things. And then you have slightly different vision that you give on your website for everyone else to see. Then what are your strategies? There usually should be only a few. Then what are your goals, SMART goals, and what are your actions? And you'll see here that There are words that are common from here to here to here so that it documents, okay, and traces and cascades from one to the other. And then there, I've mentioned Cascade. It's a more complicated piece of software that allows you to cascade your goals down as well and do all of this. Also handles human resources and tracking performance and pay and compensation, but it's really more appropriate for companies that are over 100 employees, which you're not at yet. So, thank you.